at the most prestigious high school in South Korea, where only the wealthiest and most brilliant students are accepted. Han Jiwoo feels like he doesn't belong. Back in his old, modest school, he used to be at the top of the class, admired for his intelligence and drive. But here, in a place filled with elite students who have been raised with private tutors and endless academic resources, Jiwoo struggles to keep up, especially in mathematics, which everyone insists is the most important subject when applying to college. His grades are dangerously low, and the pressure is constant. He doesn't have the means to attend boot camps or hire tutors like the others, and as someone on student welfare, the gap between him and his classmates grows wider by the day. His math teacher, Mr. Kim Gun-ho, has noticed. After grading another disappointing exam, Mr. Kim pulls Jiwoo aside and reminds him that his current academic performance won't be enough to get into a prestigious university. He suggests that Jiwoo thinks seriously about transferring to a school more suited to his level. The words sting, but Jiwoo says nothing. He knows he's trying his best. He just doesn't have the same privileges as everyone else around him. Later that evening, his roommates hand him some money and ask him to sneak out for snacks and a little alcohol. It's a small act of rebellion, a way to blow off steam. Jiwoo, wanting to keep the peace and be seen as part of the group, agrees. But on his way back, he gets caught by the night guard, Lee Hak-sung. The man is strict, silent, and intimidating, with a reputation for being relentless. Everyone calls him the commie officer behind his back, a nod to the fact that he's a defector from North Korea. Since his arrival, sneaking anything past the school gates has become almost impossible. The next morning, Mr. Kim confronts Jiwoo again, not just about sneaking out, but about who else was involved. Jiwoo stays silent, refusing to betray his friends. It's not about pride, it's about loyalty. He takes the blame alone, and as a result, he's suspended from the dorms. As he carries his bags out, Park Bo-ram, one of the more observant students in class, watches with mild interest. She'd expected Jiwoo to fold, to rat everyone out. But he didn't. On the way out, Jiwoo's roommates try to give him money again as thanks. They're surprised when he turns it down. He says it's because they're friends, and friends don't pay each other off like that. They talk for a bit longer, trying to brainstorm other ways to sneak snacks in, but nothing gets past Hak-sung. The man barely sleeps and watches everything. He's become a barrier nobody can beat. Outside of school, Hak-sung visits his doctor, who warns him about his poor sleep schedule and growing reliance on sleeping pills. The job as a night guard isn't good for his health, but Hak-sung brushes it off. This is the only work he's managed to find since coming to the South, and unless the doctor can offer something better, it'll have to do. Back in his apartment, Hak-sung's life is quiet and strange. He keeps a turtle for company, drinks strawberry milk like a habit, and spends his evenings solving Sudoku puzzles in silence. That day, Jiwoo returns to his tiny family apartment. He doesn't tell his mother what happened. Instead, he tidies up the place before she arrives, hiding the fact that he's been kicked out. His mother, a hardworking widow, lights up when she sees him in his school uniform. She's proud, deeply proud, and Jiwoo can't bear to disappoint her. He tells her he's only visiting and insists that he needs to head back to school before it gets too late. It starts raining on Jiwoo's way back, so he tries to hide in the school's abandoned lab, but he gets caught by Hak-sung. The guard feels bad when he hears Jiwoo has nowhere to stay, so he lets him rest in his office. While Jiwoo sleeps, Hak-sung finds the difficult math homework Jiwoo had struggled with. As soon as the sun rises, Hak-sung kicks him out. Jiwoo heads to his math class and is shocked to see his homework has been completed by Hak-sung, and all the answers are right. Bo-ram notices and wants Jiwoo to show the teacher, but he asks her to stay quiet. After class, Jiwoo goes to thank Hak-sung and asks him to teach him how to solve it, but Hak-sung just kicks him out again. Later, in the study room, Jiwoo overhears some classmates say even their private tutors struggle with some of these math problems, which shows just how special Hak-sung is. Jiwoo starts following him around, asking to be tutored, but Hak-sung ignores him. One afternoon, while taking out the trash, Hak-sung overhears some teachers talking about welfare students with neglectful parents and inferiority complexes. Mr. Kim mentions Jiwoo as an example. When Jiwoo approaches him again to ask for tutoring, Hak-sung tells him it's better to transfer, and that self-pity isn't something to wear like a badge because it keeps you stuck in tragedy. Jiwoo says it frustrates him that others have chances he doesn't. Finally, Hak-sung agrees to tutor him. He only asks to be paid with strawberry milk. The next day, Haksung visits his friend and Ji Chul, who help him settle in South Korea and now works as Seoul's North Korean defector support lead. They play board games and talk. And when Ji Chul gives Haksung the lamps he needed, Haksung insists on paying because he didn't come to this country for charity. That night, Haksung sets up the lamps in the abandoned lab so he can secretly teach Jiwoo there. He gives him 3 rules. First, no one must know about these lessons. Second, no questions except about math. And third, he'll teach math but doesn't want to hear anything about grades or tests. After Jiwoo agrees, Haksung gives him the first exercise, finding the area of a triangle. Jiwoo solves it quickly, saying it's a middle school problem, but Haksung says he's wrong and draws a full circle around the triangle. Jiwoo feels tricked and thinks the question wasn't fair, but Haksung's point is that he's looking at the problem the wrong way. Yes, finding the answer is important, but understanding the question, that's what truly matters. That's what Haksung tells Jiwoo as their first tutoring session continues. Math, he says, isn't just about solutions. It's about the process, the logic, the way of thinking. And when Jiwoo finally starts to grasp that idea, Haksung quietly names the moment. Epsilon. He doesn't explain what the word means, not right away. But the name triggers something in him. A memory. A younger version of himself, standing proudly beside a friend, receiving a special pen as a prize for academic success. A fleeting image, just a flash of the past, but enough to remind him of what used to be. Later that night, since Jiwoo still has nowhere to stay, Haksung lets him sleep over again. It's quiet in the office, a strange peace settling between them. Jiwoo notices that Haksung listens to classical music on an old, battered cassette player. They start talking about composers for a bit. Nothing too deep, but just enough to keep the atmosphere light. Every time Jiwoo tries to ask something personal, Haksung changes the subject. The cassette sound is grainy and distorted, so Jiwoo plays one of the same pieces on his phone. The clarity catches Haksung off guard. He listens, silent, eyes closed. For the first time in a long while, the music helps him fall into a deep, uninterrupted sleep. The next morning, sunlight fills the office. Haksung sleeps longer than usual, his breathing even. When he finally wakes, Jiwoo is already gone, off to class without a word. That day, Mr. Kim makes an unexpected announcement in the middle of math class. Instead of taking finals, the students will compete in the prestigious Pythagoras math competition. Their performance will be counted as their final exam. The room falls quiet. 2 months to prepare. That's all they get. Mr. Kim expects nothing less than gold medals from them. After school, Jiwoo returns to the lab again. And again. Every evening, without fail. Bo-Ram begins to notice. Not just his sudden improvement in class, but also the strawberry milk. He's buying it every day, sometimes twice. Enough to make it look like an obsession. One night, Haksung gives Jiwoo a particularly challenging problem. Jiwoo asks if there's a formula to simplify it, but Haksung tells him no. He has to add it all manually. 3 long hours pass. Eventually, Jiwoo works it out. He's exhausted but proud. Haksung rewards him with a story, one that stays with Jiwoo long after. A mathematician named Bernhard Riemann once calculated 38 decimals of the square root of 2 by hand. Not for speed, not to impress anyone, but to understand the numbers on a deeper level. It wasn't about memorization. It was about intimacy with the process. Haksung doesn't say if Jiwoo's answer is right or wrong. That's his homework, to find out on his own. That, Haksung says, is the role of a mathematician. Weeks pass. Jiwoo sharpens his skills, one late night after another. Progress is slow, but real. Then, one afternoon, he hears news that hits him hard. One of his few close friends, another student on welfare, is leaving the school. He's transferring back to his old one, saying this place was never worth it. Now Jiwoo has some serious thinking to do about his own situation. He's been trying so hard to make this school work, but with his friend transferring out, it feels like maybe giving up wouldn't be such a terrible option after all. Bo-Ram tries to talk to him about it, trying to relate, but Jiwoo doesn't take it well. He feels like she's mocking him when she says they're in the same boat, because unlike him, she's a rich kid. Maybe her parents are divorced, but that doesn't mean she's struggling like he is. Before the conversation can go any further, Bo-Ram's mom shows up to pick her up. Once they're in the car, Bo-Ram immediately gets scolded. Her mother doesn't approve of her hanging around a welfare kid, even though Bo-Ram technically receives welfare too, because of her family situation. But it's different. She's not on financial aid, so to her mom, it's not the same thing at all. She also gets scolded for listening to piano music, which her mother sees as a distraction. All that matters is her grades. That's why she's hired Mr. Kim to be Bo-Ram's personal tutor, even though private tutoring from school teacher is illegal. Her mom doesn't care. She just wants results. Later that night, Ji-woo tells Hak-sung about his friend transferring. He wonders out loud if maybe he should leave too, but Hak-sung tells him not to give up. Intelligence isn't the most important thing. He says it's having the courage to keep going no matter how hard things get. To show him what he means, Hak-sung pulls out some of Ji-woo's corrected exercises. The final answers aren't all right, but the steps, the process, those are solid. Ji-woo's learning how to think, and that's what matters most. That same night, Ji-woo's suspension ends and he's allowed back into the dorms. But even as he settles back into his old space, he admits to missing the quiet nights he shared with Hak-sung. The next day, Bo-Ram leaves him a strawberry milk with a little apology note. Curious, she follows him when he gets distracted and ends up finding his secret hideout in the abandoned lab. When she sees what's going on, she thanks Hak-sung for looking after Ji-woo and asks if she could drop by sometimes too. Hak-sung agrees, but only if she promises to keep it a secret. Bo-Ram jokingly calls him commie officer, which throws Hak-sung off. Sure, he's from North Korea, but he never served in the military. He doesn't explain why, just says he was exempted and leaves it at that. Right then, they notice some students sneaking around school grounds. But instead of doing anything about it, Hak-sung chooses to look the other way. After everything that happened to Ji-woo, he figures it's not worth the trouble. Another evening, Ji-woo finally asks Hak-sung why he studied math so hard. At first, Hak-sung says it was all about the scholarship. He wanted to help his family. But the more he studied it, the more he fell in love with how beautiful it was. Later, they call Bo-Ram to the piano. Hak-sung wants to show her something fun. He teaches her how to assign a musical note to each digit, and together they play the digits of pi, turning numbers into a melody. During the next math class, Ji-woo uses what Hak-sung taught him. When Mr. Kim writes out an exercise on the board, Ji-woo speaks up to correct it. The logic is solid. The teacher's question had flaws, and Ji-woo explains why. But instead of being impressed, Mr. Kim scolds him. Yes, the answer might technically be right, but it's not the one the examiner expects. And in this school, that's all that matters, giving the expected answer, not the one that's actually correct. For Mr. Kim, test success comes down to technique, but Ji-woo refuses to accept that. He says he will still give the truly correct answers on every exam. Mr. Kim considers the remark rude and makes Ji-woo stand outside the classroom for the rest of the period. After class, Ji-woo informs him that he has decided not to transfer. That afternoon, Hak-sung makes another visit to his old friend Ji-chul, who surprises him with a smartphone so he could be reached more easily. Later, Hak-sung shows the phone to Ji-woo, who notices the guard is reading long academic theses on the tiny screen. Wanting to help, Ji-woo asks a classmate to sneak him into the computer lab so he can print the entire document and give a paper copy to Hak-sung. The next day, students sit for the Pythagoras competition. Ji-woo performs well thanks to Hak-sung's lessons, while Bo-Ram starts strong by recalling the melody trick, but quickly grows frustrated. Under pressure, she leaves the classroom and does not finish the test. Her mother keeps her at home to avoid embarrassment and tells the school they are leaving on a trip. All of Ji-woo's messages go unanswered. That evening, Ji-woo and Hak-sung attend a classical concert using tickets Bo-Ram had arranged through her family's company sponsorship. Bo-Ram never appears, but Hak-sung enjoys the performance so deeply that tears come to his eyes. After the concert, he invites Ji-woo to dinner at his apartment, and Ji-woo realizes it is the first time he has actually seen Hak-sung eat a meal. That same night, someone leaks the Pythagoras exam online, causing an uproar. The teachers must discover who is responsible or face consequences from the education board. Unaware of the brewing scandal, Ji-woo and Hak-sung visit a bookstore. Inside, a stranger recognizes Hak-sung as a former university lecturer from North Korea and calls him doctor, praising him as a famous mathematical genius and assuming Ji-woo is his son. The encounter feels awkward. Hak-sung thanks the man briefly, then hurries out, offering no explanation. Back home, Hak-sung sits alone and recalls better days with his own son, Lee Tae-yun, quiet shared meals, the day they brought home the turtle, and the way strawberry milk was always Tae-yun's favorite treat. The next day, a major news story breaks on television. The Riemann hypothesis, one of the most important unsolved problems in mathematics, may be on the verge of being solved by none other than a North Korean named Lee Hak-sung. The report notes that the paper is still under review by a panel of scholars. On the broadcast, Professor Oh shares a memory from his childhood. During a math Olympiad, he represented South Korea, while Hak-sung represented the North. Both boys were awarded an elegant fountain pen by a famous mathematician, and Oh says he still keeps his to this day. Both Ji-Chul and Ji-woo see the news. Ji-woo is the first to find Hak-sung and tries to ask him about the Riemann hypothesis. But the moment he brings it up, Hak-sung becomes furious and tells him to never mention it again. Meanwhile, Mr. Kim is facing trouble of his own. The Pythagoras test leak has damaged his reputation, and he's under pressure to find the culprit. A breakthrough comes when one of the teachers checks the security footage after hearing some student rumors. On the recording, they see Ji-woo sneaking out of the computer lab carrying printed documents. The next day, Mr. Kim calls Ji-woo into his office and shows him the footage. Ji-woo tries to explain that the printouts have nothing to do with the leaked test, but he has no way to prove it. Combined with the timing of his sudden improvement in math, it makes him look suspicious. Mr. Kim offers him a deal. If Ji-woo agrees to quietly transfer to another school, he won't publicly accuse him. Even so, rumors quickly spread. Students whisper that Ji-woo leaked the test, and though nothing is officially confirmed, the damage is done. Bo-ram is upset by this. She knows the truth but can't stop the gossip. At the same time, Ji-Chul faces mounting pressure. The North Korean government is furious that the South might take credit for Hak-sung's research, especially since it has potential military implications. The NIS demands Ji-Chul persuade Hak-sung to appear on TV and publicly clarify the situation. As Hak-sung's name makes headlines, an old colleague visits, trying to convince him to return to North Korea. But the conversation turns sour when the man admits he's only there to regain favor with the regime. Mentioning Hak-sung's son is a step too far. Hak-sung grows furious and throws him out. Later, Ji-Chul visits Hak-sung and apologizes for being unable to shield him from the pressure. Despite everything, Hak-sung thanks him for years of loyalty and protection. As he packs to leave town, Ji-Chul gives him back a copy of the research paper, the one Hak-sung tried to discard years ago. Ji-Chul had saved it, believing it was too valuable to be thrown away. At that moment, Ji-woo shows up at the door, but stops outside when he hears raised voices. Inside, Hak-sung is shouting. He blames the research for what happened to his son and refuses to take it public. After Ji-Chul leaves, Ji-woo tries to speak to him, but Hak-sung is cold and distant, insisting they are nothing more than a tutor and a student. Afterward, Ji-woo receives a call from Bo-ram. She's upset, confused as to why he's letting them frame him without fighting back. But Ji-woo doesn't offer an explanation. He simply says it's over and hangs up. Elsewhere, Hak-sung arrives at the bus terminal. As he waits, he thinks he catches a glimpse of his son's face in a passing stranger, which triggers memories of the night Tae-yeon died. After yet another fight sparked by Hak-sung standing up for fellow defectors, Tae-yeon confronted him in frustration. He accused his father of escaping to the south for selfish reasons, resenting the fact that he didn't leave when Tae-yeon's mother was dying of tuberculosis. Hak-sung tried to explain that everything he did was for Tae-yeon's future. But Tae-yeon, angry and disillusioned, didn't believe that a life of menial jobs and being treated like an outcast was any kind of future for a scholar. He stormed out after telling his father to enjoy his life alone with math for company. In a desperate attempt to return to the north, Tae-yeon tried to swim across the border. He was shot and killed by patrol before he made it to the other side. Back in the present, Ji-woo sneaks into his home late at night. While his mother sleeps, he quietly finds her personal stamp and uses it to approve his school transfer paperwork. The next morning, he delivers the completed form to Mr. Kim, who simply tells him he made the right choice. Meanwhile, Hak-sung is hiding out in a small hotel room as Ji-Chul continues searching for him to bring him to the scheduled TV appearance. Then, unexpectedly, Hak-sung receives a call from Bo-ram. She tells him that Ji-woo has agreed to transfer and will be leaving the school. That afternoon is the Pythagoras Math Competition award ceremony. Ji-woo is on his way off campus, prepared to disappear quietly. But before he can go, Bo-ram intercepts him. She steals his bag and drags him toward the auditorium. Inside, Professor O begins the ceremony with a speech, briefly touching on the Riemann hypothesis and its significance. Just then, Haksung arrives. He's rushed over after freeing his turtle into the river, a symbolic farewell. He steps into the auditorium and interrupts the event. To prove his identity, he shows Professor O the identical pen they were both given as boys, and O immediately recognizes him. With respect, he welcomes Haksung to the stage and offers him the mic. Haksung begins by making light of his job as a security guard, but then speaks plainly. He admits that he's the one who taught Jiwoo math and presents the research paper Jiwoo had printed as proof. Jiwoo didn't cheat. He was simply learning quietly and earnestly. Then, in front of the entire audience, Haksung reveals the truth. It was Mr. Kim who leaked the Pythagoras test to his private students. Stunned, the auditorium falls silent. Mr. Kim, ashamed and furious, walks out without saying a word. Then, standing before the stunned auditorium, Haksung finally shares the truth. He defected from North Korea not just to escape, but because he could no longer bear seeing his mathematical research turned into weapons. He wanted his work to help students find purpose, help them get into universities, help them find jobs, not feed a war machine. But in chasing that dream, he lost his son. His pursuit of pure mathematics cost him the one thing that mattered most. He admits he's ashamed of the choices he made. Still, Jiwoo never treated him like a failure. Even when accused, even when it meant risking his own future, Jiwoo kept Haksung's secret safe. Moved to tears, Haksung bows his head, apologizes, and thanks Jiwoo for believing in him, more than he ever believed in himself. In the crowd, Ji-chul listens silently, overwhelmed. Without a word, he leaves the auditorium, letting the moment belong to Haksung. But he waits outside. When Haksung finally steps out, Ji-chul offers him a ride. Quietly, he hands him something new, a legal South Korean passport, registered under Haksung's name. Alongside it, a one-way ticket, an escape, a chance to disappear for a while, so the NIS won't track him down. Ji-chul knows he'll probably lose his job for this, but to him, it's worth it. Sometime later, Ji-chul visits Jiwoo. He comes bearing a final gift from Haksung, the pen, the same one from the math competition so many years ago, and the first draft of the thesis, Haksung's life's work, now passed into Jiwoo's hands. 3 years go by. Jiwoo is now in college, and his class visits the prestigious Oberwolfach Research Institute for Mathematics. There, surrounded by chalkboards filled with theories and a quiet mountain backdrop, he finds him, Haksung, still at work, surrounded by his numbers. Jiwoo surprises him with a bottle of strawberry milk and a silent hug. Then, just like old times, they sit together and fall into conversation, not about tests or grades, but about math itself. Just math.